So I've just cut half the yeast up here, put it in the bowl. I'm just going to add a little hot warm water to it, and then with a little fork, like this, I'm going to mix it. So just add a little water to the yeast, like so, and then it's just a mixing process. So we just stir it in until it becomes dissolved. Okay, so I've been stirring this now for 30 seconds, and you can see it's just turned into like a little, liquid. It's perfectly dissolved in there. You might have a little residue in the bottom, but it doesn't really matter. It's not a big issue. And then we're going to put the flour into the bowl here. I've also got the olive oil out as well, I remembered. Again, it's a bio olive oil, bio-organic, but you don't need to have organic oil. Any olive oil will do. This is the bit that we just, so you can see this is about a bag of flour. So I would put in maybe half of this, maybe a little less, just here. So about that amount, I would say, would be enough for two. That's enough for 2 pizzas, I think. Okay, but we'll see. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. And then we would just very simply add the yeast mixture like that. Okay, so remember that's some of our water as well. So you've already got some water in there. Then I will add a good glug of olive oil. This is a good glug of olive oil, as you can see. And then a little bit more water. That's probably enough. And I just start mixing. And we'll see, you can just do it with your hand like this. This is what I would do. And I guess you can see that. And actually, I guess now if I switch the camera, it'll be easier. How do I switch the camera? Wait a second. I switched the camera now. And so I'm just mixing here with the hand. And you can see it's coming together quite nicely. It's a little bit, I think I'll have a little bit more water in a minute, but just start mixing it really. And you'll get a feel for this. Once you've made a couple, you start getting a feel for what it should be like and how it should be. And so it's just mixing until you get to the right consistency, which hopefully I'll show you in a minute. And I'll just pause. I've just added a little bit more water, you can see. And so we're just mixing now. Again, it gets a bit sticky. That's okay. And you can always add a bit more flour if it's too wet, or a bit more water if it's too dry. So it's quite, it's nothing, you can't really go wrong with it. So you can see now, this is sort of what we're looking for. You see how it's got this, although it's gluten-free flour, you can see it's got this sort of glutinous texture, that it's not just, it's got some body to it. And so it's got some elasticity. And so this is good. You can see that, look at that elasticity. And so this is what we're looking for really, to get it to that sort of point. It doesn't take long, 30 seconds, a minute. It's just getting the water to flour ratio right. So that's a really nice sticky mix, as you can see. With this stuff on the hand now, I would just scrape it off with a knife and then it goes in, and I'll show you the next stage after that. So I'll just scrape this off. Okay, so I haven't done anything to it since last time. I just washed my hands, that's all. And I've got the flour by the side of me still here. And this is the next stage really. So we mix it to this sort of very sticky mixture that's got some gluten, gluteniness to it. And then we want to mold it into a dough ball. So this is the case where you need to add a little bit of flour to it. So it's a little bit wetter than we'll want eventually. So we just get a little flour here. Maybe I'll use my other hand actually for the flour, because then I can hold the phone better. So just a little flour here. And just sprinkle over the top, like this. And then we just want to start working it away from the bowl. It's a very simple process, no need to hurry it. If it's sticking too much, just put a bit more flour on, that's fine. And because it's wet enough, and they'll keep the moisture in anyway, this flour's going on the outside. And you can see how that's just already forming into a ball. And you'll get a little bit of stickiness on your hand, but that's okay. Just scrape it off before it goes back into the flour. We use a lot here, so it's not like we're, causing a problem there. And then again, just round that outside like that. So we're just bringing it away from the bowl. You're getting a little bit of a ball, and then it just starts to come away from the bottom as well, because we work that flour around, and we start to get a ball here. You can see it, we're not wasting any dough. And then, you can see you can move it freely now, shake it a bit, and it's going to start to shape quite nicely. And so, I can pick that up very easily now. And that's what we've got. And then I'll just work that a little bit into a rounder bowl, very simply, just gently with the hands. No squashing it, no, just gently working it a little bit. A little bit of, you can play with it a bit, play with it a little bit. And it's a little bit, you see what the kind of consistency we're looking for here. Okay. You don't want to mix it too much, otherwise it'll get too dry like this and you'll get all the little folds, so you don't really want that. But I'll just work it on for a second and I'll come back to you. Okay, so this is 10 seconds of work, and you can see it looks a bit like that. It'll rise quite a lot, I would think. What I normally do is put a bit of cling film over the top of the bowl and then just leave it somewhere, on the side here. As long as it's not cold, it'll rise quite well. You can leave it for an hour, you can leave it 2 hours, you can leave it for 3 hours. It's not a big issue. I'll leave this for probably 3 hours because I've got to go to work, and then come back, then tip it out, and I'll show you the rolling out process, the process where we get our actual pizza. Okay, so see you in a bit. Okay, so here we got the yeast, the dough. I've left it for about 2-3 hours just because I was working, so you could leave it less, you could do it for an hour. And I'll just take the plastic off, and you can see it's risen quite a lot. It's doubled in size more or less, which is fine. It's quite damp at this moment, so again we need to put a little bit of flour on it just to pry it out of the bowl, and then I will put it on a bit of grease-proof paper, so baking paper, and then roll it out, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so here we've got the dough, as I said. It's a little bit wet, so we just need to get a little bit of flour from the pot, sprinkle it on top, like that, just to start bringing it away from the sides. You can feel the texture's quite different from what it was earlier. We just need to, again, get the dough out. Okay, so we got this ball here. I'll probably cut this into two, make 2 pizzas from this. Well, it's not huge, so maybe 1, but I think 2. And then sprinkle plenty of flour onto the baking paper, like so. And then I'll just, with a kitchen little knife here, just drop that into 2, like so. There we are. There's one there. That can go in the fridge for a few days if you need. It'll rise again as well. And then we can start the rolling out process. Now I'm going to do just like this. This is where it's just working with your hands, really. Just little sprinkle more of that so we don't get too. And it's just working out like this. So you just work out from the center to get that sort of round pizza shape that we're all familiar with. As I say, this is going to be quite a thin base because it's how we like them. Rather than a really thick one, but you could do it thicker if you wanted to, if you're that way inclined. And so we just continue like this until we get our shape on the side. So this will come out to this sort of shape. Okay, pause. And so we get to this stage. I've just been doing this whole process, just continuing till we get to here. And then I normally just like to round it at the edge, just a little bit, and get a little bit of a slightly thicker edge, just a very slight crust going. It just keeps the topping from falling out everywhere, running out as it cooks. So you can just do that. You can make it more if you like, but in my experience, most people don't really want to eat crust anyway, so I don't tend to make like a big pizza crust, but I just raise it up a little bit like that. You can round it. You can see what I'm doing here, just rounding it with the hand there, pressing down as I go. You just create a sort of little crust edge just so the topping doesn't just run everywhere. It doesn't really matter if it does, but you don't really need a crust, but I think some people expect that. If you get a little hole like that, if it's too thin, just use your finger just to dab it, maybe a little bit of flour even, and there we go. And that's more or less done. That's one pizza, the other one will go in the fridge, and I will do the toppings in a second. I've double wrapped the other half of the dough. Double wrap it because it will keep rising, and so it will expand. This will get quite tight, this package, and because it will expand into it. So it's double wrapped just so it doesn't burst out into the fridge. It's not normally a big issue, but it can happen. I've moved the paper with the pizza onto a baking tray, but if you've got a pizza stone, you can just not use the paper if you want. It makes it a bit easier, I think, if you use the paper, but you don't have to. And I've just moved it into the baking tray here, and then I'll start with the toppings. So I'm back here with the toppings. What I've got here is just some Italian tomato sauce with basil. You can use any one you like, really. Some mozzarella, fresh mozzarella. I've also got the grated mozzarella, which I like to start with. We've got fresh tomatoes, and we've got some organic salami. So we just start with the tomato here, and just pour on, this sort of amount. Depends on the person. I don't like to go crazy with it, but I would think this sort of amount. It's a nice one. It's made with nice cooked down tomatoes, olive oil. So it's a nice one. And then just get a spoon, and then just start from the center and work your way out like this to create a nice even covering. You don't want it too thick. It's not, a bolognese. You want to do this quite soon after making it, because otherwise the pizza can start to dry a little bit if you're not careful. You can get the dough. You don't want to just leave the dough out for a long time, because it will soon dry out, and then it starts to crack, and it's not ideal. So you want to get some sauce on there quite quickly, like so, and you can see this is looking pretty good. I'll just add a little bit more because it's okay. You can just have a little bit more there. Okay, so I'll just go for a little bit more like that, and then it's a case of just sprinkling some cheese on, and then I'll put some cheese on. I'll put the salami, then I'll put the fresh tomato, and then the fresh mozzarella, and then you'll see that in a second. So I've put the toppings on. You can see I've started with the cheese, as I said, the grated cheese, the salami. I did actually sprinkle some herbs, as you can see here, just some Provence herbs mixed there, some nice ones. And then I just put some thin slices of fresh tomato, and then the fresh mozzarella. Then this goes in the oven until the cheese looks a little bit goldeny in places, and it's cooked. And I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so here's the cooked pizza. A little pro tip here. I often use a pair of scissors to cut it. And it's just a nice way to do it very easily. And I'll just show you this. I get a fork, because it's hot, of course. It's just fresh out the oven. Just get a fork just to pry it up, and then just very simply go along like that, and it's really easy, no problem, and you just cut along the pizza, as you can see. Okay. And here's just a pro tip. I just use scissors to cut it, and you can see it's very simple, very quick, and that's all from me. Bye.